The helicopter spiraled downward, its blade slicing through the air with a sickening whine as Jake clutched the armrest, his knuckles white. Beside him, Victoria Blackwood, his intimidating CEO, maintained her composure even as the pilot shouted that they were going down. Jake's final thought before impact wasn't about the multi-million-dollar contract they were flying to secure, but of his daughter Maddie's smile, wondering if he'd ever see it again. If you've ever wondered how life can change in an instant, this story will show you just how profound those changes can be. Before you continue watching, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories that will touch your heart and perhaps change how you see the world around you. Jake Peterson never imagined he'd end up stranded on a deserted island with Victoria Blackwood, the woman who struck fear into the hearts of everyone at Horizon Technologies. As a mid-level marketing executive and single father, Jake had always kept his head down, doing whatever it took to provide for his 10-year-old daughter Maddie after his wife Caroline's death 3 years ago. Victoria, with her tailored suits and razor-sharp tongue, represented everything Jake both feared and secretly admired: unwavering confidence, ruthless efficiency, and the kind of success he could only dream of. The helicopter crash left them with nothing but the clothes on their backs, the pilot's body, and a few items that had scattered across the pristine beach. Jake had suffered a deep gash on his leg, Victoria had broken her wrist. As they huddled under a makeshift shelter that first night, the reality of their situation sank in. The company knew their general flight path, but they had veered off course due to the storm. Search parties would be looking in the wrong place. "We need to be practical," Victoria said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "We need water, food, and to signal for help." Even with her arm in a makeshift sling fashioned from Jake's torn shirt, she maintained the same commanding presence she had in the boardroom. Jake nodded, trying to ignore the throbbing pain in his leg. "I'll look for fresh water in the morning." He paused, then added, "Maddie's with my sister. She'll be taken care of, but..." His voice cracked. "She's already lost her mother. I can't let her lose me too." Victoria's expression softened momentarily. "We're going to survive this, Peterson. I didn't build a Fortune 500 company by giving up when things got difficult." Days turned into weeks. They established a routine. Jake would gather food and maintain their signal fire while Victoria, despite her injury, worked tirelessly to improve their shelter. They learned to fish using makeshift spears, collected rainwater, and even managed to salvage some items from the helicopter wreckage. At night, they would sit by the fire and talk. At first, their conversations were practical, focused on survival. But gradually, they began to share more. Jake spoke about Maddie, her love for science experiments that often ended with something exploding, her struggle with math, and how she still slept with the stuffed penguin her mother had given her. "She sounds remarkable," Victoria said one night, staring into the flames. "You've done well with her." Jake shrugged. "I'm just trying not to mess her up. Some days I feel like I'm failing her completely." "How so?" "I miss her school events because of work. I can't help her with her homework because I'm exhausted. I'm never fully present because I'm always worried about the next bill, the next deadline." He poked at the fire with a stick. "Caroline would have done better." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "My father was like you," she finally said. "A single parent, always working. He owned a small hardware store, worked 16-hour days. I used to resent him for never being at my recitals or science fairs." Jake felt a pang of guilt. "And now?" "Now I understand he was doing the best he could with what he had." She looked at Jake directly. "Your daughter knows you love her. That's what matters most." As the week stretched into a month, Jake began to see Victoria differently. The intimidating CEO facade cracked, revealing a woman with her own insecurities and regrets. She confessed that her relentless drive had cost her every meaningful relationship in her life. No husband, no children, no real friends, just a corner office and stock options. "Sometimes I wonder what it was all for," she admitted one night, her voice barely audible above the sound of waves crashing on the shore. "I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes, but no one to share it with." Jake found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone, how he sometimes woke up reaching for Caroline, how he'd sit in his car and cry after dropping Maddie at school because he didn't want her to see his pain, how he feared he was slowly disappearing into his grief. Their survival partnership gradually evolved into something neither of them expected: friendship. Victoria helped Jake devise a better system for managing his work-life balance once they returned home. Jake taught Victoria how to laugh again, something she claimed she'd forgotten how to do years ago. Then came the storm, a violent tempest that destroyed their shelter and washed away their signal fire. They huddled in a small cave, soaked and shivering as lightning split the sky and thunder shook the island. When Victoria developed a fever the next day, Jake knew something was terribly wrong. "It's nothing," she insisted, but her eyes were glassy, her skin burning hot. Jake found a cut on her arm that had become infected. Despite his best efforts to clean it, Victoria's condition deteriorated rapidly. Delirium set in, and she alternated between shivering violently and sweating profusely. "If I don't make it," she whispered during a moment of lucidity, clutching Jake's hand. "Don't talk like that," he interrupted. "We're getting off this island together." Victoria shook her head weakly. "Listen to me. If I don't make it, I want you to know that I've changed my will. Half of my estate will go to Maddie's education and future. The other half will fund a foundation in Caroline's name to help single parents." Jake stared at her in disbelief. "Victoria, you're delirious. You don't need to." "I've never had a family," she continued, her voice growing fainter. "These weeks with you have been the most real my life has ever felt. I want my money to mean something when I'm gone." That night, as Victoria's fever peaked, Jake did something he hadn't done since Caroline died: he prayed. He begged whatever higher power might be listening to spare Victoria's life, promising to be a better father, a better man if they both made it home. The next morning, a miracle occurred: Victoria's fever broke. And as if answering Jake's prayers, they spotted a ship on the horizon. Their frantic waving and the large SOS they had spelled out with rocks finally paid off. After 42 days on the island, rescue had come. The return to civilization was jarring. They were whisked from the rescue ship to a hospital, where doctors marveled at their survival. News outlets clamored for interviews with the CEO and employee who had defied death. Maddie flung herself into Jake's arms in the hospital room, sobbing with relief, while Victoria watched from her bed with tears in her eyes. 2 weeks after their rescue, Jake returned to work, unsure of what to expect. Would Victoria revert to her former self? Would their island connection evaporate in the fluorescent lights of corporate America? He found his answer when he was called to her office. The old Victoria might have been sitting behind her imposing desk, but instead, she was standing by the window, looking more human than he'd ever seen her in the office. "I meant what I said on the island," she told him without preamble. "About my will. It's been changed." Jake shook his head. "Victoria, you don't owe me anything." "This isn't about owing," she replied. "It's about living. I've spent my life accumulating wealth and power, but you showed me there are more important things." She handed him an envelope. "This is my final request." Inside was a promotion letter, not just any promotion, but a new position created specifically for him. Director of Work-Life Integration, with flexible hours, the ability to work remotely 3 days a week, and a substantial salary increase. "I want you to help other employees find the balance I never had," Victoria explained. "And I want you to have the time you need with Maddie." Jake was speechless. This wasn't charity, it was recognition of his value, both as an employee and as a father. In the months that followed, Victoria became a regular visitor at Jake and Maddie's home. She helped Maddie with her science projects, attended her school plays, and even joined them for their Sunday tradition of pancakes and board games. The woman who once terrified the entire company became Aunt Vicky to a little girl who had lost her mother and gained an unexpected champion. Victoria Blackwood never married or had children of her own, but she found family in the most unexpected place, a deserted island where she had been stripped of everything except her humanity. And Jake Peterson, the single dad who had always felt he was failing, discovered that sometimes the most profound connections come from shared adversity. The foundation they established together, the Caroline Peterson Foundation for Single Parents, went on to help thousands of families navigate the challenges Jake had faced alone. Victoria often joked that getting stranded on that island was the best business decision she'd ever made, though it certainly hadn't been intentional. 5 years after the crash, Jake and Maddie stood with Victoria on the beach of the island that had changed their lives. They had returned to scatter some of Caroline's ashes, a symbolic gesture to honor the woman whose absence had shaped their journey. "Do you think she would approve?" Victoria asked softly as Maddie ran ahead, collecting shells. Jake watched his daughter, now 15 and thriving. "Of you?" "Absolutely. Of us coming back to this place voluntarily? She'd think we were crazy." Victoria laughed, the sound carried away by the same wind that had once howled through their makeshift shelter. "Maybe we are. But sometimes crazy leads to exactly where you're supposed to be." As they walked along the shore, Jake reflected on how life's most devastating moments can sometimes lead to its greatest blessings. He had lost his wife, nearly lost his own life, but gained a friendship that defied explanation and a future for his daughter that was secure in ways he could never have provided alone. Victoria's final request on that island hadn't been final at all, it had been the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. Not romance, as some of their colleagues had speculated, but something equally powerful, a family forged in adversity, strengthened by mutual respect, and dedicated to making a difference. I share this story because it reminds me of my own unexpected friendship that developed during a crisis. While I wasn't stranded on an island, I did find myself trapped in an elevator for 6 hours with someone I had judged harshly. Those hours changed how I saw them, and myself. Sometimes, being forced to stop and truly see another person is the greatest gift life can give us. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the unexpected connections that shape our lives. Remember that sometimes our greatest challenges lead to our most meaningful relationships, and that family isn't always defined by blood, but by who stands beside you when you need them most. As Jake and Victoria learned on that island, sometimes we must lose everything to discover what truly matters. And sometimes, a final request isn't an ending at all, it's the beginning of something beautiful.